And right now we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Katie Greifeld, taking you through to that closing bell. It's a global simulcast. Massar and Tim Stenovec join us now. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television, radio, our partnership with YouTube. Coming off what Wednesday was a fast and furious day for earnings. We get more earnings today. Remember, yesterday we heard, Carol, from the fifth, the fourth, and the third largest weightings in the S&P 500. Today we get the second, and that's Apple.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Looking at the stock, it's been up as much as 2.2% today. It's just up about 1/4%. Most of the Mag 7 we've seen lower in today's session, but one of the few. What?
Romaine wants to know if you own an iPhone. And I have to imagine that you do.
I do. Of course I do. It's right here.
Of course I do, she says.
Might I show you? We're an Apple household. TV, music, watches, although my watch is old. My husband keeps pushing me, like, well, don't you want that? You know, go get a new watch. I'm like, I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, well, maybe
there's a lot of Apple
for your
stuff.
birthday.
Okay, that was a yes or no question. We got a lot more than we bargained for.
So, Apple's going to be important. I think there are some folks out there, observers, who say the numbers are a part of the story here after the bell, Katie, but also, you know, what's the transition going to look like for Tim Cook going to John Ternus? Anurag Rana, who we just spoke to, said, yeah, that's fine. I want to know margins.
Yeah, fair enough.
Good for him.
There are folks who would like to know what a John Ternus-led Apple looks like.
He said, look,
we'll find
this
out
guy's been at the company for years.
Yeah.
So it's not an outsider.
Yeah. Well, for those that do care here, the expectations, at least as far as the Bloomberg consensus for analyst estimates, looking at 100, almost chuckle when to say this out loud, $110 billion in revenue for the quarter. And more importantly, this one, of course, for Anurag, gross margins projected to come in at about $53.2 billion. We get the closing bells here in New York on the penultimate day of the week, but the final trading day for the month of April, and it is a record high for the S&P 500, 7209, up 73 points or 1% on the day, closing out a 10% run for the month of April. The NASDAQ Composite and NASDAQ 100, each up about 1% on the day, also at record highs, each up about 15 to 16% for the month of April, and the Russell 2000 getting in on the action as well. It's only going to add, what is that? I can't read that. About 2%. Is that what it says? 2% here on the day here. And that's going to be good enough here for a 12% gain on the month.
Wow, what a month. Unbelievable. I'm going to go back to the day, if I may. Katie, you've got 380 names in the S&P 500. Higher for the session, 120 to the downside, 3 unchanged.
If you take a look at the circle, it is fascinating today because you have all of this green on the screen, and then you take a look at information technology as a sector was actually lower by about 0.6%. What a tug of war was going on in that slice of the pie, because you had Broadcom, AMD, Qualcomm, Apple, et cetera, really trying to push the sector higher, but then on the downside, NVIDIA and Microsoft, just too big to overcome. Oracle as well, Carol. Definitely a really interesting sector performance today.
All right, guys, we've got some earnings crossing the Bloomberg. Let's go to Rivian out with its numbers. First quarter production, 10,236 vehicles. That's a little bit light. The street was looking for a number more like 10,311. First quarter cash and cash equivalents, that too is below what the street was forecasting. What the actual number was, $2.85 billion. Street was looking, guys, for more like $3.6 billion. Right now the stock just down a hair, down about 0.3%. All right, as we await for more earnings, let's go to some of the top gainers around the markets today. Qualcomm, a top gainer in the S&P and the NASDAQ 100. We got those earnings late yesterday, and that stock was up 15% in today's session, up the most in 7 years. I believe that's at the close and intraday as well. Rallying after the company said it was making headway in the lucrative data center market, and it also predicted that the China phone industry would bounce back. This a top hyperscaler on track to begin using Qualcomm's components later this year, and the company's become more optimistic about the market, seeing AI data centers as a major source of potential growth. We've got some more earnings, Romaine.
Yeah, let's get to Roku. The shares up about 10% in the after-hours trade. Revenue in the most recent quarter coming in relatively in line with estimates at about $1.25 billion. But the guidance for the next quarter, here you go. Net revenue for the second quarter, $1.3 billion. The street was looking for $1.29. So kind kind of just on the nose there. Gross profit, though, is coming in slightly above estimates. The company anticipating $580 million for the second quarter. The street was looking for $568. A similar story for adjusted EBITDA here. And here's your full year revenue outlook. The company says expect about $5.5 billion in revenue for the full year. That's pretty much on the nose of what the street was looking for the year as well.
Meanwhile, let's take a quick look at Rivian again. They just reported earnings. They're also coming out and saying their first quarter revenue came in at $1.38 billion. That is just below the estimate of about $1.39 billion. First quarter vehicles delivered coming in at 10,365. That is actually a little bit better than the estimate for about 10,279. You can see that the shares lower by about 1.1%. And I mean, Rivian overall, Carol, has been a really rocky story.
Yeah, absolutely. Just bringing it up on my Bloomberg, stocks down about 16-17% year to date. But as you said, the story much more tricky. All right, let's go back to some of the individual gainers. I mentioned Qualcomm, Alphabet, of course, parent of Google, definitely an outperformer in today's session, top in the NASDAQ 100, up about 10% in today's trade. We've been talking about it. I'm sure you guys have as well. This one leading gains among the Mag 7 after last night's deluge of big tech earnings from Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft. The search giant reported high demand for its cloud and artificial intelligence products, which really was, the key thing is that they're spending, yes, indeed, but they're also showing some return on investment. So you saw some outperformance there. And I just want to mention something different. Teradyne, also an interesting trade where the stock was down about 19% yesterday. Investors moving back in, up about 12%, top in the S&P 500. Investors weighing in, analysts weighing in. JP Morgan upgraded the semiconductor manufacturing company to overweight from neutral against the drop yesterday. There were some other upgrades and some price target raises as well. Teradyne did fall on some likely disappointing forecasts. That was what we got from the company. The sell-off, though, from JP Morgan offers materially higher upside for the shares and a largely unchanged revenue trajectory in our expectations, with moderation in revenues in the second half only reflective of the timing of programs and purchases rather than changing the long-term growth trajectory. Basically, some upbeat thoughts, and you saw investors coming back. Tim, over to you.
Okay, I'm looking at shares of Imax in the after hours right now. First quarter revenue coming in above estimates at $81.4 million. First quarter adjusted EBITDA coming in just below estimates at $30.5 million. First quarter adjusted earnings per share coming in just above estimates at 17 cents per share. First quarter adjusted earnings per share did beat estimates. Terms of stock is unchanged in the after hours. That's Imax for you.
Hang on, guys. Can we go? I just want to take a quick look here. Western Digital actually just crossing the wire. Remember, this is the third best performing stock in the S&P 500, up more than 150%. The share is now down in the after hours trade. After the company reported net revenue, that's relatively in line with estimates at about $3.34 billion. The street was looking for $3.23. But the company says for the current quarter, the fiscal fourth quarter, operating expenses will be a nudge higher, $385 to $395 million. And it does say, though, that gross margin will be in a range of 51 to 52%. Not quite sure the comparison there, but it does look like the street was guiding just a touch below that here. So that looks like that could be a beat. But you see the negative reaction there in the shares for the third best performing stock in the S&P this year.
All right, let's go on over to Roblox, also coming out with its numbers. Let's get to the forecast. The company sees fiscal year revenue of $5.87 billion to $6.14 billion. It had seen $6.02 billion to $6.29 billion. So interesting in terms of the range there. Sees fiscal year bookings $7.33 billion to $7.6 billion. It had seen a number way above that at $8.28 billion to $8.55 billion. You can see Roblox getting killed in the aftermarket, down about 20% here. Also sees second quarter bookings, as we mentioned, $1.55 billion to $1.61. The estimate was above that at almost 1.9. First quarter daily active users, 132 million folks. That is also light. 143.8 million was what the street was looking for. Again, Katie, that stock down about 22% aftermarket.
All right, let's get on over to Reddit reporting right now. Second quarter adjusted EBITDA. The forecast beating estimates here. They see that number coming in for the second quarter between $285 million to $295 million. The estimate had been for $275.5 million. So you can see that a little bit of a beat there. When it comes to the look behind, though, first quarter daily active users coming in at 200 0.8 million users. That is slightly above of the estimates there, but you can see that the stock taking a little bit of a dip lower right now, currently lower by about 2%.
All right, I'm going to Atlassian, ticker TEAM. Shares are surging in the after hours. This after the company up 12.2%. The company reported third quarter revenue that beat estimates. As far as the outlook goes, fourth quarter revenue, $1.65 to $1.66 billion. The estimate was for $1.66 billion. The beat on earnings, they beat on revenue. Let's look at third quarter revenue, $1.79 billion. The estimate was for $1.69 billion. Third quarter adjusted EPS came in above estimates at $1.75. Third quarter cloud revenue came in above estimates at $1.13 billion. And it's that operating margin at 34%, where the estimate was for 27.6%. That also helping shares in the after hours up. Let's call that 12%.
All right, so that one is going higher. Atlassian. SanDisk going in the other direction after posting its third quarter results. The company sees fourth quarter revenue, so this is the outlook, sees fourth quarter revenue of $7.75 billion to $8.25 billion. That seems to be a big beat here. Just looking to see if there's any other headlines here, just starting to trickle out. And it does look like third quarter revenue that did beat the average analyst estimate. So we'll keep an eye on that one, but definitely some movement.